Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great week out there so far. We continue to have a lot of information to go over, and that's exactly what we'll do in this morning's video. We'll cover many things. Everything will be time stamped out pretty well, at least I hope for you guys' standards. But there is a lot to cover. So the first thing we'll talk about is the winter storm for today into tomorrow. Now we'll also include the severe weather event for areas of the deep south that will happen and materialize later on this afternoon into this evening. The same system bringing all the winter weather to the north is going to bring that severe weather to the south. So we'll kind of cover both. So I guess you would say that we're going to cover today's forecast in the beginning portion of the video, but I will timestamp it all out. So we'll zoom into individual regions, especially with the winter weather side of things, show you the updated graphics. Of course, as always, like we do on this channel, we'll keep you ahead of the storm. So for folks that are seeing the snow right now, I'm not going to show a lot of graphics for those areas because it's happening right now, but I will stay ahead of the system. We get into the Midwest, Great Lakes region, the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, etc. After we get done discussing that, we'll talk about the weekend storm. This will be a high impact storm also. This will bring a significant severe risk, I think, for areas of the deep south as we get into Saturday. In fact, they already have a level 3 out of 5 risk of severe weather and enhanced risk for Saturday. We'll speak on that. We'll speak on the winter weather side of that. We'll speak on the fact it's going to bring a lot of strong winds, flooding rain chances across areas of the eastern U.S., and then we'll switch gears and speak on next week's pattern. And I think it's going to bring some winter weather even to areas further south. And I think there'll be winter storm chances next week. And I think there'll be an opportunity for a lot of cold air. And there is just a lot to talk about. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. And just another reminder, guys, timestamps are up throughout the entire video. I haven't seen anybody complain about the length of the video, which has been really awesome. But chances are you're going to get the information you're seeking. You just got to kind of maneuver throughout the video. So with that being said, let's get rocking and rolling. So this is the latest watches, warnings, and advisories. There's a big winter weather side of this right at this second. We're going to have that severe weather side of things that materializes later on this afternoon for the south. But this is really for what's been going on, the winter storm warnings in the pink for the Mid-Atlantic, and what will continue to go on this morning into the next 24 hours as we will have freezing rain. We continue to have winter weather advisories for North Carolina, winter storm warnings up for Virginia, West Virginia. We got a lot of snow for certain areas. We definitely overachieved from the original forecast for a lot of areas. So freezing rain will continue in certain areas. Will continue to add up on top of that snow. We got winter weather advisories across the Northeast. This is for the system to come. But it's starting off, of course, like all weather, west to east. So we do got winter storm warnings ongoing in the pink. Snow is already falling out there across Kansas, starting to really take over northern Missouri, moving into Iowa, and will begin to take over the rest of the Midwest and the Great Lakes region throughout the next 24 hours. Winter weather advisories as far south as Indianapolis, St. Louis, Springfield. We even got ice storm warnings in Toledo. So that's new. They have not issued winter storm warnings in Detroit. You got winter weather advisories, but this will be a pretty decent snow event for lower Michigan, Milwaukee, winter storm warnings. So we also got winter weather advisories as far south as Lubbock. And just taking a look at the radar and things here, we had some wild weather in Oklahoma City, Norman area this morning. We had thunder sleet, thunderstorms of basically sleet. I was actually shocked to see that. I wasn't expecting it. But as you can tell, these two areas of moisture are kind of connecting with one another, quite literally here in Arkansas and Louisiana. So we got a big slug of moisture pulling out the south, running into this cold air. We continue to have this freezing rain in areas of Virginia, even North Carolina this morning, a little bit of snow on top. It looks like Long Island got at least a few inches of snow. Let me know. No, that was supposed to be the more northern extent of this system, this first system this week. But then the snowy side of this is really cranking up. We got some heavy snow making its way throughout the plains and starting to move into the Midwest, and this will begin to take over this area later on today. So this is a large system. And I think we'll even have a larger system this weekend. So let's give you some updated information on this system. Let's look at the latest Euro. And we'll start off now and kind of more so in the middle of the country and the eastern U.S. Instead of the plains, just because it's already happening right now in Nebraska and Kansas. So I do apologize for kind of cutting you guys off a little bit, but I mean, it's happening right now in that area. As we start to move into about midday, snow will begin to pick up in intensity in Chicago. We'll see what happens in St. Louis. You know, the Euro continues to show more so snow in St. Louis, but you know, some of the National Weather Service forecasts really aren't buying this. So I mentioned this in last night's video. I would love to get just let me know what you're seeing in St. Louis. That's an area I'm very interested in. I'm always interested in a city or two in these systems, or when you're really close to that kind of rain snow line. But this is all moderate to heavy snow up in Iowa, snowing definitely in northern Missouri. This system will begin to crank up into Chicago. Some snow moving into northern Indiana, southwest, well, pretty much all lower Michigan. Snow begins to fall in Milwaukee. Snow can make it as far north as the UP of Michigan. Don't expect a big event off this, though. And really what's been the trend with this system is a weaker low pressure. So once upon a time, we had, you know, this was looking like a much bigger snowstorm up here in Chicago, lower Michigan, but the moisture, the cold air hasn't went anywhere. It's really the moisture that's kind of not as beefed up as it was, just because it's not as strong as a low pressure. But we're going to get a long period of ice here in Indiana and then northwest Ohio, but snow on top of that area. And this continues, and what will be interesting later on this evening, this is around 9, 10 o'clock tonight, we could get a period of lake-enhanced snow off the western side of Lake Michigan and Milwaukee and surrounding areas. That will kind of add to those snowfall totals that will fall from the actual system. But you continue to get this corridor of ice through Toledo, and I think that's why you have ice storm warnings. Low pressure really close by, bringing a lot of warm air aloft. How much snow will you get in Detroit? Depends on if you stay all snow. But this system will begin to crank up a little bit more as it gets basically crosses Lake Erie. And let's go on and switch it to the northeast. This is starting off this afternoon, so we're kind of backing it up a little bit in time. But wintry mix begins to move into PA, and then you get into New York. Just a lot of winter weather moving in. Could start off as a brief wintry mix in New York City. We got some snow moving into southern New England. Could start off as a brief period of snow, wintry mix in Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. But even those areas, I think it will switch to just freezing rain or just rain. Low pressure flying right over Buffalo. We got heavy snow up here in Quebec and Ontario. And then we continue and we move into Thursday morning, an all-out winter storm moving into Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. But you know, it's not enough to prompt winter storm warnings, just because you are going to switch to that rain most likely. And this turns to all rain in southern New England, rain falling on top of snowpack in New Jersey. Like I said, I will back this up. You are going to continue to get these periods of freezing rain down here throughout the overnight hours. Really long duration winter storm, 48 hours at least, for areas of eastern West Virginia, western Virginia. But this will be a heavy, wet snowstorm in the northern half of Maine. You're going to get a foot and a half of snow up here, and then the down east areas of Maine Thursday afternoon will begin to just mix with a lot of ice and then maybe rain, and then we'll get some backside lake enhanced moisture behind this northwest flow. So a latest forecast, let's start off west to east. Iowa, this is as far west as we'll go. In Missouri, just because, you know, Nebraska, Kansas, it's already happening. Des Moines 4-6, Ames 4-6 is the grand totals with this system. Dubuque 5-7, Davenport 3-5, Burlington 3-4, Dodge City, I'm at Fort Dodge 3 to 4 inches. Not expecting any really ice up here. Missouri, additional snowfall totals, you know, good for around 3 to 6 inches of snow for most of northern Missouri. Some of this has already fell. 3 to 5 grand total, it looks like, in Kansas City, but this could overachieve. This is always confusing because this is valid for midnight last night through about 6 p.m. Friday. So some of this is fell already over the last few hours. St. Louis, I mean, just going for an inch or less, but we'll see what happens. Euro shows more snow than that, but hey, we'll see what happens. So we'll know here in the next couple hours, I'll tell you that. But, you know, looking at the ice forecast, not calling for much ice, obviously. So not that too much of that to worry about. That'll change once we get into Illinois, then Indiana. Speaking of Illinois, 2 to 3 inches in Bloomington, Lincoln 2 to 3. This is downtrended for this area. Once upon a time, some of these areas were calling for over a half a foot of snow. It's because that system trended weaker. It's pretty much why. 4 to 6 in Quincy, Peoria, 3 to 4. And then looking at ice totals, a few 1/100ths of an inch of ice kind of south of Bloomington, Lincoln, Champaign. But I wouldn't expect a whole lot in this area. And then we head up closer to Chicago, 4 to 6 inches for the city. Rockford, 4 to 6. Dixon, 4 to 6. Pontiac, 3 to 4. Paxton, 2 to 3. Getting south of Chicago along the Interstate 94-80 corridor, 4 to 6 inches of snow most likely. Could get some enhancement off the lakes. Not really expecting much ice in this area, but once you get south of Chicago, a few 1/100ths of an inch of ice is possible, so a light glaze. And then we head on up to southern Wisconsin, Janesville, 4 to 6, Dodgeville, 4 to 6, Milwaukee, 5 to 9. Could be a hot spot for snow, cold spot, but you get what I'm saying. But 5 to 9 inches for Milwaukee. Lake enhancement, I'm sure locals are more so talking about this. I'm not an expert on lake enhancement snow because I've never experienced it. So, but I know enough to know that this will be enhanced a little bit off the lakes as this system pulls through, and a little bit northerly flow kind of just enhances that snowfall. So definitely, it's kind of one of those systems where the lake helps you. Sometimes the lake will actually create kind of a marine layer of warm air and prevents heavier snowfall totals. But Indianapolis, kind of central Indiana area, inch or less of snow in Indianapolis. You get north, maybe an inch. Lafayette, 1 to 2. The icing totals certainly could be a bigger deal in this area. North of Indianapolis, like Tifton, Crawfordsville, could get as much as a tenth to a quarter inch of ice. Marion could get a little bit more. There is that corridor in red here where you could get a quarter of an inch of ice or more. Fort Wayne, a tenth of an inch of ice to a quarter inch. So the ice total's starting to pick up in central and north central Indiana. But I do want to show you a larger view because for whatever reason, the National Weather Service out of northern Indiana does not have updated graphics. So South Bend, 4 to 7, Fort Wayne, 1 to 3, Gary, 4 to 7. Several inches of snow expected in northern Indiana. And normally I have a kind of a close-up view of that area, but they don't have it up. They do have an updated ice graphic, though. Fort Wayne, a few inches of snow with just over a tenth of an inch of freezing rain. That certainly will bring impacts. But there's that little red area. That's where they're calling for over a quarter of an inch of ice. Van Wert, 3/10 of an inch. Defiance, 2/10. So, yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to deal with notable ice. You're going to be able to see this weighing of the trees. This will be a long duration period of ice in this area. Northern Ohio, a couple tenths of an inch of snow is possible, but I do think the freezing rain will be a bigger deal. Quarter of an inch in Toledo, closer to 3/10 of an inch in Bowling Green. You got ice storm warnings in these areas, so please be aware. And you thought I was going to leave you hanging in Michigan. Nah, I got you covered. 4 to 6 inches of snow in Detroit. Still going for around the same. That has not changed. Flint, 4 to 6. Detroit's and Jackson's going to be really close to that mixing line, though. We'll see what happens. Kalamazoo, 4 to 6 inches of snow. Alpena, 6 to 8. Grayling, 4 to 6. Cadillac, 4 to 6. Grand Rapids, 4 to 6. So that's about the general theme is 4 to 6 inches up here. Could get a little bit of freezing rain. Let's look at the ice forecast in the far southeast corner of Michigan. Detroit going for 3/100ths of an inch. So, and then we kind of head southeast. Snowshoe could get another 3/10 of an inch of ice, unfortunately. Some of this is maybe already accumulated because this was updated. This is from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Thursday. But freezing rain opportunity will continue to be there. Beckley got hit hard by this snowstorm. Saw some video over that area. And then just southeast West Virginia just got crushed. Some areas are well over a foot of snow. And then the icing in southwest areas of Virginia and just western areas of Virginia. Someone in the comments said this is not considered southwest VA. Okay, not sure what it's considered, but I know I got a lot of people tuning in from this area. I'm not going to always get the geographical areas correct, but most people don't mind. But another tenth of an inch of freezing rain is possible in Blacksburg, Roanoke, Mount Airy, maybe a very light glaze of ice. But this will definitely be kind of anchored against those higher elevated regions. So you live about 1,000 feet up higher than others. You could hang on to those freezing temperatures longer. Therefore, you're going to get more freezing rain. Not expecting much snow in this. Same thing, you got well over a foot of snow down here in Staunton, hopefully I said that right. Someone said something in the comments, but I forgot. You know how I am. Charlottesville, Little Glaze, Harrisonburg could get as much as a tenth of an inch of freezing rain. You guys got hit hard by snow, so a little bit of freezing rain on top of the snow is going to cause issues. PA, just maybe an inch or so of snow pretty much across the board. Freezing rain in this area, certainly notable. Allegheny Mountains, over a tenth. To some areas could get a quarter of an inch of ice. Everywhere else in PA, good for about a light glaze. Nothing high impact, I don't think. New York State, Albany, maybe an inch. Syracuse 4, Tuck Hill Plateau could get several inches of snow, closer to a foot in some areas. To Buffalo, about 2 inches of snow. Higher elevated regions south of Buffalo could get several inches of snow. But some of this is driven off lake effect snow. So this is through 7 p.m. Friday up here. Vermont, couple inches of snow. Higher elevations, maybe a few. Wouldn't expect a whole lot, though. And then southern New England, 1 to 2 inches of snow in Boston is what they're calling for. Springfield, 1 to 2. Berkshires could get a few more inches outside of everybody else just due to the higher elevations. A little bit of ice, too, for you 100ths of an inch of ice. Some areas in the Berkshires could get over a tenth of an inch. And then we look at New Hampshire and Maine. Freiburg, 4 to 6. Plymouth, 3 to 4. Concord, 2 to 3. Portland, 3 to 4. Augusta, 3 inches of snow. Rangeley, 3 to 4. Jackman, 4 to 6. Could get a little freezing rain off this too, but I wouldn't expect anything that, is anything to really worry about. Northern Maine, big snowstorm. Some areas, this will be your biggest snowstorm of the winter. Once you get into the far northern counties in Maine, 12 to 18 inches of snow is forecast. Caribou itself, 8 to 12. Central Maine, anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of snow. You get down to the down east areas, and just a few inches of snow is forecast. And we could get a little ice in the down east areas of Maine, too, just a little bit. So that's an update on that system. Now, that same system is going to bring a severe weather threat today across the south. So this is today. A slight risk. This could upgrade to an enhanced risk. Right now, just a slight risk as of around whatever time it is, 6 something. But New Orleans, Baton Rouge, to Hattiesburg, Meridian, Jackson, Montgomery, down to Mobile, Pensacola, up to Birmingham, all the way over to sections of Atlanta, the southwest sections of Atlanta. So you have a 5% risk of a tornado in that yellow area. Well, this is brown. The yellow area was the slight. But this brown area, that's a 5% risk of a tornado today within 25 miles of the given location. I have grandparents that live here in southwest Alabama. If you're watching, hey, I know they watch all the time. Love you guys. But they live certainly in what I would consider like the tornado alley of Alabama, which is right down here. So you do have a risk of tornadoes. Stay safe down there today. We do have a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour with some of these storms. And the hail risk, it's not zero, but the dynamics with this system is not going to support much hail. And just looking at the radar today, so this is around 7 a.m. We got a lot of moisture surging through, a lot of heavy rain. Can't rule out a strong to severe storm through midday, but I think it's really what gets going later on this afternoon. It's about 3, 4, 5 o'clock. You see these storms down here? Like, let's see if I can get this. You see these storms right in here? That's not big enough. Let's see. These storms right here, we got to worry about. You're going to be working with moisture that's going to be surging up through this area. Dew points will be rising well into the 60s, maybe even some low 70s in certain areas. And these storms I just circled, they'll be tapping into an environment that can get them going and produce some strong winds and some tornadoes. So we keep this going. You see some of them have that kidney bean look. They look like they're hooking. This is getting into 5, 6, 7 o'clock. We got to watch this initial line too. All these storms surging through Louisiana, the southern half of Mississippi, through Alabama, through Georgia. They could produce, and what gets scary is we get to 7, 8, 9 o'clock, the sun's beginning to set, and these storms are still going, kind of beginning to congeal together, but we're going to have some tornado warnings today. And we got to watch out even as we're getting into the overnight hours. I think we'll start to run these storms into some more stable, cool air in northern Georgia. But these storms are packing a punch at like midnight tonight through Alabama, through southern Mississippi, starting to get through Mobile. These will wake you up in the middle of the night. And we're waking up tomorrow morning, and what's left over of this system, these storms are starting moving across the panhandle in Georgia. But you got to watch out for those, especially any kind of supercells right in there that get going this afternoon. They could produce. Okay, we got plenty of moisture. If we look at the dew points, like these are dew points. Look at these dew points surging into the upper 60s and 70s. You're gonna feel the air mass down here. There's gonna be some juice in the air mass. You're gonna feel it. It's gonna be very humid. And then we kind of look at the significant tornado perimeter. Watch how it begins to spike this afternoon. And it's cutting this off a little bit too much. I think that it could be all the way up here. But the significant tornado perimeter, the higher the number you see on your screen, the better the ingredients for tornadoes. But it really begins to spike as we're starting to get into this evening. And there is that boundary separating stable air with unstable air right through areas of Alabama. But I think this will be a little bit further north than what it's showing. And then along the line, you're going to have that risk of tornadoes. And then the updraft Felicity swath highlighting pretty much that slight risk area pretty well. Kind of where you have these slashes of kind of greens and yellows. That's where this particular model run is liking the opportunity for some spin-ups. So be aware of this. It's wintertime setup. You definitely want to be aware. Today, there is a risk of flash flooding. If you live in that yellow area, that is a 15% risk of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles in a given location. Brain fart a little bit. So we're going to have a lot of rain, and this is between now and just the next 24 hours. I mean, through Louisiana, central Mississippi, central Alabama, through northern Georgia, anywhere from 1 to as much as 3 inches of rain. And then we head up into the Carolinas, a lot of rain. A big flooding threat could materialize, especially in the southwest mountains of North Carolina. But 2 inches of rain is possible over the next 24 hours in Greenville, Spartanburg, Asheville, Hendersonville, Atlanta, 2 to 3. Charlotte could get 1 to 2 inches of rain. Sharp cutoff, though, because most of this is kind of just flowing over the same areas, but a lot of rain up through this region. So, take a deep breath. What about the weekend storm? We're going to start this off Friday afternoon, and I'm going to cut some people off, and I do apologize, but just trying not to pull up a million tabs. I don't think this will be a huge system for the central U.S. I think it's once it gets into the Midwest, points east, this is when this system really cranks up. So this Friday afternoon, we got the snow blossoming Friday evening across Wisconsin. This is moving across Milwaukee, Green Bay, down to Chicago. Okay, this system continues. We start to get into Saturday morning. We got snow across areas of the Great Lakes region. Some snow starting to make it into even like the Northeast. A lot of rain surging up through the Mississippi Valley. And then we start to get into to Friday afternoon. Low pressure ejects through Arkansas. This is going to bring a lot of warm, moist air to the south, because that's what low pressures do. They yank in the moisture from the south. You see the snow break out again on the northern edge. Cold air boundary still up here. And we're probably going to get some sort of winter weather event. This is getting in a Saturday evening, kind of across the same areas they're going to get it over the next 24 hours. Snow flying around across in lower Michigan, northern Indiana, northern half of Illinois, the Midwest. But you got 998 millibar low screeching across western Kentucky. This is bringing probably some nasty severe weather down here, and we'll kind of zoom into that here in a second. We got a front-end thumping of winter weather. There's a lot going on. Saturday evening across southern New England, snow into Boston, maybe New York City. Could be heavy, and then it switches all to rain. Low pressure cutting across the Ohio Valley, 990 millibar low. That'll get the job done. And on the northern side of this low is going to be cranking. So a blizzard in certain areas in southern Ontario, heck, maybe even lower Michigan, could get going. Just due to the fact that this is strengthening, trough is getting negatively tilted. Someone up in this snowy side of this is terrible color. Snowy side of this is probably going to try to reach blizzard conditions. We'll see what happens as we get a little bit closer. A lot of rain in the green. Look at this backside snow all the way back to Indianapolis, all the way down to Evansville, Paducah, 987 across Pittsburgh. That's a lot of meat to this system. This will bring a lot of rain into southern New England. It'll switch any kind of winter weather to rain. Look at all the ice into the interior New England area. Look at the snow moving into Maine. This could be a huge winter storm for areas of Ontario into Quebec. But I mean, look at the rain switching to snow on the backside of this. This cold air blasts through. Could have multiple low pressures developing off this trough, digging down with this cold front. So another one begins to move in, and we could get some northwest flow snow all the way down to the Tennessee, North Carolina mountains, certainly West Virginia. That is a lot of system right here. Look at all this freezing rain and snow into Sunday evening. Powerful storm system. And I mean, the GFS shows something similar, but of course, GFS is going to do what it does and certainly bring a colder system Saturday morning, bringing heavy snow into Cleveland, Columbus, heavy snow into Pittsburgh. It's just a colder run, and it could be right. 999 millibar low Saturday evening, moving across Kentucky. Not quite as strong, I would say, as the Euro, which is probably why it's colder. But this corridor of snow develops Saturday night into Sunday, across the Midwest, Chicago, Detroit. A lot of snow moving into New England, and then it switches to ice and into freezing rain and a lot of rain to the south. And hey, on the GFS, it stays just about all winter weather in Buffalo. And then that northwest flow event follows. With such a strengthening low pressure, one, this is going to bring a lot of heavy precipitation. It's going to bring a lot of strong winds. And then with it cutting, it's going to bring severe weather south of the low. So just speaking a little bit more on this winter weather side, this is the signal off the Euro ensemble. This is in 24-hour period. So blends 51 members in this one 24-hour period, creates a mean and our average, and averages all those members up. So it wants to show a 1 to almost 4-inch snowfall mean across Wisconsin, Michigan, heck, even the northern sections of Indiana, Illinois. And then it begins to skirt into southern areas of Ontario. Pretty decent snowfall mean across lower Michigan. So if you miss in this first system, there's an opportunity with the second. There is a signal back here in the Midwest too. And then this begins to move into the Northeast. And we'll zoom into that. And we'll back it up a little bit. Here comes the system into Sunday. And I mean, you got a few inch snowfall mean into Boston. Not much into New York City, Hartford, southern New England, a few to several inch snowfall mean. And northern PA could get a few inches of snow, but New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Mass, especially as you get into the interior sections of New England and the Northeast, definitely some areas in that purple, over a half a foot snowfall mean in a 24-hour period. Could be a big storm. Could be a lot of ice too, which is not what I'm not even showing that. That doesn't even blend the ice together. We'll be able to show you that as we get just a little bit closer. But listen, the severe weather side of this is going to be pretty bad. Hopefully not that bad, but I think this could be your biggest severe weather threat we've seen so far this year, definitely. In that orange area, this is for Saturday. We're already at level 3 out of 5. What technically this orange area means is we have a 30% risk of severe weather. That could be any severe weather. Tornadoes. It could be... I don't think we're going to get a 30% risk of tornadoes, but just... you basically got a 30% risk of severe weather within 25 miles of the given location. In the yellow area, it's a 15% risk of that. So it's basically a level 3 out of 5 risk and enhanced risk for day 4, which is not super common. So that just tells you that they have a lot of confidence in severe weather, maybe even an outbreak of severe weather into Saturday. And the ingredients are there, guys. If we're taking a look at the Euro, this is dew points. You got thermodynamics, kinematics. Thermodynamics, your surface moisture, your CAPE levels, etc. Kinematics is all your wind energy in the atmosphere. So we start off Saturday morning, get into Saturday afternoon. You got this moist sector. It could be underdone too, but dew points well into the 60s across Louisiana, eastern Texas, Mississippi, climbing in Alabama and southern Georgia. So a lot of moisture to work with. Okay, check that off the box. And we're going to do some of this on the fly just to avoid pulling up 5 million tabs like we already got up. And then we'll take our way into Saturday again. This is CAPE levels. CAPE levels are typically underdone on global models, but we got CAPE levels reaching 500 to, well, almost 2,000 joules per kilogram in certain areas. And I would argue it's probably going to be higher than this as we start to get into some of these CAMs, the short-range models. But we got storm energy. Okay? And then we look at the low-level wind field, what we call the low-level jet. Winds at about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air. And as we're getting into Saturday afternoon, we got this, basically this jet kind of over areas of Mississippi, southern Arkansas, Louisiana. And I mean, it don't even have to be 50, 55 knots. I mean, these areas in 35, 40 knots, winds basically going 55, 60 miles per hour, about a mile above your head here in the deep south. You add that with the thermodynamics, you got the overlapping ingredients needed for severe weather. It creates the wind energy, it creates the directional shear, it puts a spin in the atmosphere, and you are certainly going to have all of the ingredients for severe weather. And even as you get into Saturday evening, I mean, the low-level jet does nothing but increase. This will mix a lot of winds to the surface. It'll be very windy even where you're standing here. So plenty of wind energy. You see the wind barbs pointing in general out the south. So you know that it's yanking in a lot of low-level moisture. So strong winds at the surface, low, mid, upper levels. Check it off the box. And just kind of giving a depiction of what the radar could look like off the Euro. To me, the system kind of resembles a line of storms. Kind of a line of storms with embedded tornadoes in it. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't get any supercells out ahead of a main line. But even the Storm Prediction Center discussion mentions more so a line of storms. But we'll see what happens, and this eventually will make it into the southeast, bring probably a severe weather opportunity for the southeast too. And then winds are going to be a big deal. This is just between now and Saturday morning. We'll have windy conditions between both systems. But then here comes the system this weekend. Watch how you start to see stuff down here, and then we move it all the way through. This is all the way through next Tuesday morning. I mean, we have 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts down here in the mid-south, deep south. And you mix that with the heavy rain, saturated soils, we're going to get down trees. I mean, even in areas where the severe weather threat isn't going to be. But look at these strong winds up in New England, the Carolinas, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts possible, the mid-Atlantic. So this is going to bring a lot of strong wind opportunity also. Mix that with the fact that you also got, with this weekend threat, a flash flooding threat already for Saturday for Nashville, up closer to Frankfort, and basically southern Kentucky to areas of Tennessee. You have at least a 40% chance of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles of the given location. So they're already honking the horn at a flash flooding risk. So this weekend system is going to be a heck of a system. And then what's to happen after that? I mean, guys, the pattern don't slow down. We'll start the Euro and the GFS off. And just remember, what you see is not a forecast. We'll start off Monday afternoon, the 17th. Cold air is diving down. We got snow breaking out across the middle of the country. And then watch how this system gets going. So this is next Tuesday evening, about 6 days from now. And I think this system's going to happen, personally. It's just trying to figure out the details of it, right? I mean, it's still way on out there. But we got a snowstorm breaking out across Oklahoma. And we'll zoom into this as we get closer. Kansas, some snow in Nebraska. We take it a couple more frames. We start to get into the middle of the night next Tuesday into Wednesday. We got snow moving into Arkansas, Missouri. And then Wednesday morning, snow's moving into northern Mississippi, western Tennessee, Kentucky. And then it gets sheared out and turns into kind of a weaker system as it moves closer to the Alps. But that's not a forecast. And then it tries to beef up again right here and turns into a winter storm into areas of North Carolina and southeast VA for next Thursday morning. Way out there, 8 days. And then, there's another system that follows after that, but there's no point in getting into that. But I think this system next week is going to happen. I just think it's just trying to figure out the details, which will take a while. And then the GFS shows it also. We're getting into next Tuesday afternoon. Look at this winter storm breaking out across Kansas, areas of Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas. Snow's falling in Nashville next Wednesday morning, a week from today. Snow into Kentucky, into the Ohio Valley. Brings a winter storm into Virginia, the mid-Atlantic. Winter weather into northern North Carolina. And then tries to drop so much cold air down that it brings winter weather all the way down deep into Texas. And then, as the system is sort of pulling out, it wants to bring even winter weather for areas of South Carolina, eastern North Carolina, Myrtle Beach. Not a forecast. Not a forecast, guys. And then who knows what happens after that. We just don't know the details of anything after that. But it looks like the pattern is going to still support wild stuff. And just to throw a little hopium into this, the last night's GFS was wild. Like, watch what it did, and it's the same storm system. It just went crazy, and it did this on the 18Z last night too. It's not supported by the operational, ensembles much, but I will show it to you. Develops this winter storm across Virginia, North Carolina. Not a big one, but look what it does after this. Just super CAD, cold air damming event develops. I mean, the cold air damming event's so strong, it's all the way deep down here in Georgia, and just dumps a ridiculous amount of sleet and snow across areas. It's just a whopper of a winter storm. And listen, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying there's going to be cold air around. There's going to be a lot of moisture around. Euro ensemble, starting off next Tuesday morning, it picks up on that snow signal. I want you to kind of watch into here and watch how this kind of swoops like this. Okay? Remember, this is 24-hour periods. So it's going to appear then disappear in certain areas. And there's that signal for snow moving across areas in the Mississippi Valley, the Mid-South, and then upper portions of the Southeast into the Mid-Atlantic. You got a signal there. Okay, and then you look at, say, the GFS ensemble, which I'm not quite sure if it's completely ran yet. And we get past the weekend storm, and then here comes, there it is again, dropping down. The GFS ensemble continues to not really support its op, though, which means it's not really supporting the operational run. But it is a system showing up more so further north for like kind of the Midwest, Ohio Valley. And but it does show a pretty decent signal for North Carolina points north, but nothing much further south than that. So we'll continue to watch. The Canadian shows the storm too. And we know cold air is coming. Like this coming Saturday. Look at the cold air diving into the western and central U.S. You know, the greens, the blues, the purples, that's below average temperatures. The reds, the oranges, etc. That is warmer than average temperatures. We're not going to focus too much on how below average it is. It's just colder than average temperatures. That blast through early next week could get a brief moderation, and the cold turns around and just moves right back in and settles in for the long run. Maybe throughout the rest of February, honestly. It looks like it's going to remain below average just about for the entire eastern U.S. throughout the rest of the month. So we've been talking about this, just to round this video off, we've been talking about this, on and off for the last 2 weeks, and how there was a potential for the MJO to reach phase 8, which is that 8 right there. Favorable phase for cold winter weather for the east in wintertime. Phase 7, somewhat favorable, more so for the central U.S. Phase 4, 5, and 6, which is what we just worked through, which is why we just torched in the south. That's a warmer phase. But all model guidance is taking us into phase 8. In fact, has us in phase 8 by this weekend, early next week. Euro does. This is the 13th of February, 15th, 17th, 19th, 20th. Strong, a pretty decently strong MJO 8 phase. So that supports what we're seeing on models. It's pretty wild. And, I've taken the time to learn a little bit more about the MJO. I still am not an expert with it. But I know what the favorable phases is and how forecasting it is extremely difficult. But models are responding to the progression of the MJO, just like they did back in January when we went through the favorable phases. And I mean, you look at the extended, it says we go through a favorable phase 8, 1, 2, and then it tries to wrap it back around. Okay, GFS ensemble shows it too. GFS ensemble shows us getting clogged up in phase 8, which would prolong the pattern. And I mean, everything shows it. So it's not just Mitch, some random dude on YouTube seeing it. The Climate Prediction Center sees it too. This is between days 6 and 8. So the 17th through the 21st. If you live in the blue, they're going for below average temperatures. You live in the darker blue, like the purple color, their confidence is higher in below average temperatures. So colder pattern settling in. Come on, Mitch, get it together. It's only 40 minutes. And then above average precipitation chances. And then we go back to temperatures and we look at the 8 to 14 day outlook. Still looks cold for the central and eastern U.S. and could still be active as far as storm systems for the south, southeast, and the mid-Atlantic and southern New England. So that's all I got. A lot to cover. Man, I'll be honest. I'll be honest when I'll be happy to when we're just talking about 1 to 2 systems, not about 5. So God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.